All right, everyone. Plan A is not working. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to scrap everything that I've been doing, and I'm just going to break it up into a multi-part series. And I cannot tell you how many parts it's going to be, but this is going to be part one. So part one will be titled Service Appointment 1. But before we get into that, I have to tell you how I became interested in Tesla and what led me to eventually purchase one. So we'll start with that. So the first time I saw a Tesla was 3.5 years ago. It was the summer of 2014. I was in LA for a friend's 40th birthday party, and this guy pulled up next to me, and he had a white Tesla Model S. I'm not sure if it was an S60 or any of that kind of stuff, okay? All I know is that the guy was driving a white Model S, and I had never seen one in person before. So he pulls up next to me, and he's getting out of the car. He's letting his wife out, and I look over at the car, and I said, nice car. And, I'm not usually one to say this. I don't really care, but this car really, the Model S really caught my eye. So the guy was really nice. He was an older gentleman. Opened the door for his wife and got her out. And he's like, take a look at it. So I'm like in there, stick my head inside, looking at it. And I'm like, wow, it's just the screen. I was just, my eyes just went to the screen, the display, and I didn't really look around at much for anything else, and didn't know anything about the car, so I didn't get to talk to him about acceleration or anything like that. I just said, well, how do you like this car? And he said, I love it. It's the best car I've ever had. I said, cool. Now, from this point, I started to do research, because I thought this was pretty interesting. So I saw the Tesla again. I'm pretty sure I saw one more Tesla while I was out in California. I mean, they were everywhere, but I saw another owner and spoke to him briefly, and it was, he said, it's the best car I've ever had in my life. I'll never drive another car. And I was like, wow, that's huge to say that. I mean, that's really heavy to me. And I was like, wow, okay. And so then I get back here to Atlanta, and I see other Tesla owners, few and far between, but I see them over the course of a year. And every time I see someone driving a Tesla, and I have a moment to speak to them, I said, how do you like your Tesla? And they say, it's the best car I've ever had. I will never drive another car. And I just really thought that was, it almost felt like it was rehearsed, like these people were told to say that or something. It just seemed amazing to me that everyone would say the same thing. I was just like, wow, that's kind of, So the summer of 2015 rolls around, and I finally decide, after watching several videos from Bjorn and K-Man Auto, and I think it's Mike Anthony Autosports or something like that. But after seeing all of their videos, I was like, okay, I want to see one of these things. I want to drive one in person. And one had popped up in Decatur, like a big Tesla service center. And I understand there had been one in Marietta before, but I didn't know about it. So finally I go in, and after doing all this research, and I test drive the Model S. And the one I test drove, I want to say it was a P85, but not a D. I think it was just a P80. It might have been a P85D. I don't know. It was the summer of 2015. So I test drove this car, and I walked away from it thinking, wow, I wish I would have done this sooner, because I was pretty underwhelmed. And I'm going to tell you why I was underwhelmed. Because it was too low to the ground for my taste. I didn't like how low it was to the ground. I didn't like the fact that when I went to get in it, I hit my head. And, it just seemed like they were very, a little too sporty for me. And, I wanted a vehicle that had space and everything. And I was like, I don't know about this. So I'd heard about the Model X, and so I told them this car is not going to work for me. I think I'm going to hold out and wait for the Model X. So after leaving, I calmed down a good bit. And like I said, you can't take anything I say from this video, you can't take one piece of this video and then go back around and say, oh, you know what this whole thing is about, because I've got a very, very long story to tell here. And it's important that I tell you about everything that happened. So I start getting emails from Tesla, and they're like, oh, thanks for coming out and looking at our car. You know, what did you think? And I told them what I thought. I wrote this long email telling them, you know, I appreciate it, but I'm going to pass. I'm going to hold out and wait for the Model X. It's not, you know, Model S is not for me. The form factor just doesn't work. And they were like, okay, that's fine. You know, they weren't pressuring me. I just want to make that clear. They weren't like, but they were contacting me. And they were checking in periodically. So then, you know, a few months went by, and I decided to go out and look at the hybrid Avalon and start looking at hybrid cars. And I test drove that, and it had been literally like a couple of months since I had test driven the Model S, and still the acceleration of pretty much any car I was test driving, and I'm using the Avalon as an example, just left me feeling unfulfilled. You know, I just felt like something was missing. So from there, I decided, well, let me go back and give Tesla another shot. Let me look at it again. So I go back and I take a friend of mine, and we meet this really nice guy over at the Marietta location for Tesla here in Georgia. And this guy really knew his stuff. I mean, he's still there. He's still at Tesla today. We go out there and sit in the car with him. I had spent so much time working with the MCU and just getting familiar with it that I didn't even care to test drive the car. I told him, I said, yeah, I don't really need to test drive the car today. But my interest was brought back just by sitting in the car and going through the controls and all the features that the car had to offer. I was overly impressed once again, and the hooks were starting to get back in me. Of course, my friend who was with me is like, God, why didn't you test drive the car? Are you crazy? What's wrong with you, man? It's not really thinking. I'd already test driven, and I didn't feel it was necessary to do it again. From there, I started to think about it again. I started to think, maybe I should go on and get the Model S. But within a month of me looking at that car, they had the reveal for the Model X, and I was like, oh man, I'm in. Actually, it was more than a month. It was a couple months later, because I think they revealed it in like October or November of 2015, or they did their. It wasn't even the reveal, actually. They'd already done the reveal, but it was the oh god, like the founders. When they start giving out the keys and they start delivering, or the key fobs to the first few people, I guess it's like maybe 5 people take delivery of it and they leave. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna hang in there and wait. And sure enough, Model X started to show up in Atlanta. I saw it in Decatur, and I'll get to the rest of the story.